So this past week, we had fun at Mardi Gras on Shrove Tuesday, and of course we gathered on Ash Wednesday. But what I love about those 2 days are, first off, how they seem so contradictory to one another. First off, you're eating all the fat, and then secondly, you're not supposed to eat anything. But what I loved about those days were seeing our parish's kids. To see their curiosity about what was going on. When we lit the fire from the palms from last year to make into ashes. When they sat on the floor on Ash Wednesday listening to Mother Maxine explain why Lent is so important. Our kids are very curious. Speaking of one parent who I said their child was just like me when I was that age. Full of energy, always asking questions, hard to control. In fact, my mother nicknamed me Curious George for a while when I was a kid. Because I would always ask why. Or if I saw something, anything out of place, why is that there? I would always notice it. And when it became too much for my mother and father, instead of time out, or as would be when I grew up, go to your bedroom, it was go outside and play. To work off some energy. To go and be outside, to think about everything, to spend some time really alone with God. In essence, it was my own little wilderness that I was going through as a child. A wilderness that I was seeking answers to questions. Questions that I wanted to know, but questions that I had no answers for. You know, in our lives, you and I, like Jesus in today's gospel, often travel in the wilderness, and in the wilderness often alone. Yes, there's the outdoor wilderness. Jesus was in modern day Israel or Palestine. And if you go there to this day, you will see sand and rocks and no vegetation, and you wonder how anyone could survive in that environment. Of course, you could go to the wilderness of a jungle, or the wilderness of walking along the shore of the ocean, or the wilderness of finding yourself amongst 8.5 million people in New York, trying to find your way. Of course, along with the wildernesses that are outside, we also often have the wildernesses of our mind. Sometimes our mind is our own worst enemy. We can't break the cycle. You know what I'm talking about. You think over and over and over again about the same thing, and you think you have it done, and then it just comes back, and you're thinking about it and thinking about it, and you're never really getting out of that wilderness because you're like trapped in a maze. A maze that has no end. My sisters, my brothers, as we begin this Lenten journey, we need to know that there is an end. And that end is Christ going to Calvary on Good Friday, to be hung on the cross and die as a common criminal, and then 3 days later to rise again. It is this Lord, this Savior, who is pointing us in the direction of light, who is trying to help us seek the answers to our questions. But like so many things, we want the answers in our time, now, not tomorrow, not in a week. We want to know now. Why is this happening? What did I do wrong? Why is God punishing me? Is there a God? These are just some of the many, many questions. If we're honest with ourselves, we have thought from time to time. And there's nothing wrong with questions and wondering. Jesus himself spent 40 days in the wilderness, and Matthew's gospel says it was to be tempted. But I think it was also his time to retreat and to really spend time with his Father, to try to figure out what exactly God was calling him to do as he prepared for 3 years of ministry among us. A week ago, my therapist gave me a quote which has just been sitting with me, which I think resonates with all of us during the season of Lent. It was written by Rainer Maria Rilke, who was a Bohemian Austrian poet who wrote very lavishly in the Germanic style. He was alive from, 1875 to 1926. And there was a young poet who was writing and was trying to, through his poems, trying to understand all these why questions, or the where questions, or the how questions. And Rilke, through holy wisdom, wrote this: be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. Live the questions as a book written in a foreign language that when we pick it up, we do not understand. But it's okay not to have the answers. But by living in the questions, by living with God in our worries and our doubts and our fears and our hopes and our dreams, we will someday wake up and realize that we're living in the answer. My friends, Lent is an opportunity to go into our own wildernesses, to not be afraid to ask the tough questions, but also to know that although the answers might not be given immediately, with Christ walking beside us, with Christ sometimes carrying us, or with Christ sometimes dragging us along, kicking and screaming, we might live into the answers. Amen.
Amen.